Well, it looks like today is microphone overload day. So these all belong to one customer, and it's surprising how often I get a lot of microphones like this from somebody. Um, they'll buy a bunch of them and send them all at one time to have them all fixed up at the same time. So that's what he did. Sent 6 Turners in. So there are, what do we got here? 2 Turner+3s, this one and that one. There's a Super Sidekick, and then 3 of the one that I kind of like the most. I think they're just cool, the vintage, classic look. The SSB+2s in the background there. And they have the cool kind of color with the matching colored microphone cords. But so he wanted the electrolytic capacitors replaced in these because just like in a radio, the electrolytic caps can go bad in these things. And if you have a Turner microphone, and actually kind of what this video is on, wiring microphones or testing them, but if you have one that you're just guaranteed no ifs, ands, or buts, it just doesn't work and it's wired properly, don't give up hope. Now, don't get me wrong, the microphone cartridges can and do go bad in these, just like they can in any other microphone. But a lot of times, and not just Turners, any power microphone. Now, it would need to be an older one, of course. If you go buy a brand new power mic and it craps out on you, yeah, that's probably just a cheap mic. But, older microphones like this, stuff that was made, in the 1970s or say, yeah, the caps in these things are going to dry out just like they do in, your radios or televisions or anything electronic. They go bad. And when they go bad in these, they won't work. You'll push the button, you'll have receive and transmit, but you won't have any audio. So, best thing to do is replace the caps in them first. If it still doesn't work, then yeah, there's a chance that the microphone element's bad. But now when I redo these, I'll replace all the electrolytic capacitors, clean the controls, and the contacts on the push-to-talk switches. But of course I need to test these. And now I had absolutely no idea what these were wired for. The note that he just sent said recap and clean, recap restore. And 3 Turner SSB+2s, 1 Super Sidekick, and 2+3s. And yeah, so I don't know what they're wired for. Now, probably anybody that has a lot of radios may already have one of these. I suggest getting one if you're going to be dealing with a lot of microphones. That's a microphone tester. You can get them brand new, find them used on eBay or Amazon or anywhere else, wherever you buy your junk at. But what I'm talking about are these little self-contained microphone testers. Now I have a chem wipe on this just to keep the dust bunnies out because all the microphone jacks face up. So yeah, if this thing, mine is, God, old. It's got some age to it. Got several of these, but this is the one I use all the time. But like I say, I just keep a piece of Scotch tape on the back with a chem wipe on it. That keeps the dust from getting down in the holes where all the microphone jacks are. Because like I say, that's the only problem with these. The mic sockets are facing kind of up in the air. But that's it. You'll see these with lots of different brand names. Now this one's Allen, or might be pronounced Alan, because that's Midland's French division, I think, is the Allen, or like I say, might be Alan if it's pronounced in French, I guess. I'm not French, so don't know. But yeah, you can pick these things up. They're not excessively expensive, not exceedingly expensive, brand new, and they do a good job. Now they're cheap. I'll have to warn you that right now. I have repaired a lot of these things. Don't be surprised if you have one. And actually the newer ones seem to be junkier than the old ones. But don't be surprised if you have one, have it for a couple years, and then it stops working, or you even hear something explode on the inside. Probably an electrolytic capacitor. Just like in the microphones, electrolytic capacitors go bad in these. The problem with these things are they're made in China and they are cheap. I mean really, really cheap. They use like the absolute lowest quality caps on the face of the planet. I think taking 2 pieces of aluminum foil and wrapping them around a gum wrapper and sticking 2 wires into it would be more reliable than the capacitors that they use in this thing. I have fixed a lot of these that have bad caps. And they're a pain in the butt to work on because I'm not going to tear it apart, but the circuit, all of these sockets are soldered directly to the circuit board. The problem is the components, the little audio amp IC that's in there and all the passive components, so the electrolytic capacitors and resistors and ceramic caps, they're on this side of the board. They're not on the bottom side. So you have to unsolder every single microphone jack, every pin, to be able to remove the board so you can change those caps. But yeah, that's usually all that goes wrong with them. One thing I did modify on this was I had a bad habit of leaving this thing turned on because there was no indication that it was on. So I stuck an LED light on top so, I can see a little green light there. But like I say, really handy. Now, the problem you can run into is, for starters, and I always tell people, I have repaired radios where someone, let's say, and this microphone I'm going to use in this example is a good example. They'll buy this microphone on eBay, they look at the plug and they go, it's 4-pin, and they just assume it's Cobra. They just figure up Cobra, Ranger, Galaxy, the standard wiring pattern for most radios nowadays that use a 4-pin. Well, if you were to plug this into a radio that took that wiring pattern, depending what radio you plug it into, you may let the smoke out, because this microphone is definitely not wired for a Cobra 4-pin pattern. All of those now, that's one of the advantages of using something like this. This little thing is powered by a 9-volt battery internally. Now, and when you buy these, they come in two different versions. They come like this, where it's an internal battery, or you can get the ones that have basically a power socket, just like you'd see on the back of a mobile radio in the back of it. I like the battery-powered one. I just stick a rechargeable battery in there, but that way I don't have to worry about another cord plugged in. But the nice thing about this is it's low voltage, and there's nothing coming out of this. There's no voltage on any of the pins on this microphone tester. So what you can do is take an unknown microphone like this, because like I said, I had no idea what any of these were wired for. There's 4 pins there like this. There's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4. No, 4 of them are wired with 4-pin plugs. One of them has a 5-pin plug like this, and the other one is a 5-pin DIN plug. Now, like I say, you don't know what it is. What does it go to? It's the advantage of this. It's real easy to check and see, is this microphone wired for a Cobra 4-pin? So, let's say if I grab one, does this have a 4-pin? Yeah, this one has a 4-pin. So, I can just turn this little guy on, plug it in, and if it's not a Cobra 4-pin, I don't have to worry about anything blowing up. It's not going to hurt anything. But as you can see, the little receive light turned on as soon as I plugged it in. That's the receive light, and then there's a red transmit light. And then when I push the talk bar, you can see it switches into transmit. So that right there, I'm pretty confident this microphone is wired for Cobra 4-pin. So now I can hook up a battery to it and test it and see if it actually works. And it was a Cobra 4-pin. But that's the nice thing about using something like this. There's none of these pins, if you short them out, is going to blow anything up. It's not going to self-destruct. At least I've never had any of the ones that I've had. If you hook up because here, I take this one and I'll plug it into the incorrect socket. So let's say this one over here is labeled for Midlands. I'll plug it in, and you can see, and that's because they're wired pretty much backwards. But with the bar not pushed, you can see it says we're in transmit. And when I push the bar, yeah, this LED kind of glows dim. So yeah, there's obviously something wrong there. And actually that's because it's the audio that's partially grounding, but it's not enough to really illuminate that light. But I didn't hurt anything. Nothing exploded, nothing was hurt. I plug it back over here in the other one, green light, push the bar, transmit, works just fine. So great way to prevent blowing your radio up, because especially if you're dealing with older radios, and it's even more so with tube type radios. If you're dealing with a tube type radio, you take a microphone and plug that thing into a tube type radio and key the microphone, you might let some serious smoke out. And it doesn't even have to be tube type, even solid state radios. I had a guy smoked, what was that? A Stoner Pro 40. Plugged the wrong microphone, because it's a 4-pin mic plug, plugged the wrong microphone into it, and the Stoner Pro 40s have voltage on one of the mic pins, just like most tube radios. And tube radios, you really need to be careful, because there's very frequently 100 to 110 110, 120 volts DC on one of those pins, because the keying relay in the radio, so the receive transmit switching relay, it has somewhere between 100 to 120 volt DC coil. That's what they're operated off of. They're not low voltage, they're high voltage operated relays. So yeah, you go hooking up the wrong microphone that's wired the wrong way, you could very easily take that 100 plus volts DC and shove it back in through the audio line. And if there's not a DC blocking cap there, yeah, you can let the smoke out. Or in the case even of solid state radios, like I say, a Stoner Pro 40, if you plug the wrong microphone cord into a Stoner Pro 40, you're going to burn out the mic amp and do some other damage in one of those things. So be careful. That's why these are nice. You can plug it in and try to figure out what it is. But you can run into this. This microphone, I plugged it because, like I say, 4-pin. If I plug it into the Cobra President socket, no lights. Push the talk button, the transmit light comes on, but yeah, whereas something's not right here. And if I plug it into the Midland socket, yeah, I push the talk button, the receive light comes on. So yeah, we don't know what this is wired for. Well, how do you figure that out? Well, really all you need is an ohm meter and some common sense. You don't even need an ohm meter, to tell you the truth. If you just take the shield off of the back of this and then remove the bottom plate on the microphone and just see what wires are attached to what. Now, if internally this microphone cord has never been rewired inside, the wire colors are standardized. A-Static and Turner use different microphone wiring schemes, so their wire colors are different. But if it hasn't been rewired inside, honestly all you have to do is just take the 2 screws out here for the clamp, the 1 screw right there, pull this piece back and see which wires are attached to which pin, and you can figure the pin out. And that's basically what I did. I took the back off of it, but there's only 3 wires attached to this plug. And when I flipped this one over originally, you have to remember, most of these microphones are going to have this little switch in the bottom. It says electronic and relay. Because these were designed to be able to work, and these microphones came out back in the day when radios were relay switched. And they grounded, as I said, through the microphones. So what's actually on this microphone plug is the audio and then basically the relay and ground. So you have the audio out, there's a ground, which is also used to ground the audio, the ground for the audio circuit, and there's one other wire. That one other wire in a radio would go to the other side of the relay inside the radio. And then when you push the talk button, that would switch the relay, switch the radio into transmit. But how can I now test this microphone? Because I don't want to go sending, let's say in the case of these, I'm working on somebody else's mic. How do I know it works? Because it has the wrong plug. There's no plug on this microphone tester that's going to work with this. Well, not really. We have a plug, and I could make up something for any one of these. Just get creative. So all you need to do is, now there's a couple things you could do. You could do something like this. Just take a microphone jack, put some alligator clips on it. You could just plug this in here and then clip on through the front there to them, or you could even take the back off, like if it was a socket where you couldn't get the grab onto that, you could clip onto the back side of it. That's one way to attach it. What I prefer to do is I made up a set of, and actually another thing you should make is an opposite one. So, because occasionally you want to hook up a microphone to something in a circuit, let's say. So, if you're working on radios, this is a handy one to have. You can just hook up a microphone here, and then you can attach this in circuit somewhere. So if you suspect there's problems further forward, from the socket on a radio back into the microphone audio amp circuit, you could bypass that and hook the microphone up further inside the radio. So cables like this are handy. But what I prefer to use is to make up an adapter. And this is the adapter. So there's a plug and there's a socket. And then I just put banana plugs on one end and banana plug sockets on the other end. Now, I can just pull it apart as long as I know, and I do know, which, as long as I know what the colors of my wires are that go to the which pins, what I can do now is I can plug this end, and I already have this one wired correctly for this microphone. So I can just plug this in to the microphone tester, plug my microphone that had figured out the wiring pattern on. There is the alignment notch right there. I can plug that in there now, and I can, if I turn the volume up here some, yep, too much. I'll just turn the gain down on the mic. As the camera swings away. Audio 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 1 2. But that allows me, of course I'm getting feedback, and I'm talking into the microphone that's right in front of my face, so I don't know how well you could hear that, but like I say, it's an easy way to adapt one of these microphone testers to be able to test any microphone, because you only need really 4 pins: your ground, receive, transmit, switching, depending on the mic, and your audio back in. These microphones that have numerous other pins, now, most of your 5 pins, a lot of times they'll have separate grounds, what they call a switching ground and an audio ground. But a lot of these other microphones, it's just like amateur radios. They have buttons in the microphones for channel up, down. You'll see microphones with all kinds of stuff built into them. Those you really don't need to worry about. You're worried about, does the microphone element work and does it transmit? Like I say, with one of these, this is really all you need. You could just use this 4-pin socket, so you only need to make up one of these with this end and 4 banana plugs, and then you can make up one of these for different plugs if you needed to. Now this already has, 5, that's a 6-pin, that one's 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 pin, you have your 5-pin DIN plugs, 4-pin, 4-pin, and 5-pin. But like I say, it's very easy to make up an adapter plug, so you can use a microphone tester. Remember to turn that off so I don't kill the battery, but to use this microphone tester with any radio. And you can use this on radios too. That's another thing to think about. You can take something like this, that way, if you don't have fancy microphone adapter plugs like these, I've got dozens of these things, and I have them in 2 different styles. I have the old Mura mic mates, and I have this style, and I've made up loads of these things. As a matter of fact, you can see that's what an 8-pin. Yeah, because that's 6. That's a 6-pin. Trying to look around the camera here. Yeah, it's a 6-pin. But this one's for modern unitins. I don't think you can get these with that plug in it, but what you can do is you can buy these adapters, take this center part out. I just get these with 4-pin. I usually buy like a dozen or 2 of these at a time. And I'll take the center out if it's not the correct one, throw it in a trash can, but you can fit the other ones in here. The 6, the 7, the 8 pins, all the different styles, they'll fit into these bodies. Now sometimes you may need to modify it, file it down a little bit or something to get it in there, but yeah, you can make up your own plugs. But like I say, that's a lot of plugs to have. You can accomplish the same thing with something like this. Yes, there's a chance of audio or RF feeding back into the circuit here, because there are exposed, your audio line is going to be exposed. There's no shielding around it, but you should be transmitting into a dummy load anyhow. If you're working on a radio, you shouldn't be using an antenna, so RF energy, around your bench shouldn't be that high to start with. But like I say, this is a handy way. You only need one of these, and then, in whatever radio you want to stick it in, and then just make up this end, and then you have one microphone. So you'd have one microphone you use, and then you would make up, one of these for each of the different pin-out styles that you have. But even then, you would still only need one 4-pin plug, because you can reconfigure it by just, plugging in the banana plugs, in different combinations. Let's say something like that. So there's just a quick little tip on microphones, things not to do. Don't ever, unless you're 100% sure that a microphone is wired a specific way, don't ever plug it into a radio. You might damage your radio. And like I say, the main tip is make up an adapter plug. Get yourself one of these cheap little microphone testers. Make up an adapter plug. It's a really easy way to test microphones that are not wired where they'll directly plug into one of these sockets, because it's, this one was wired for an old radio, so for an old relay switched radio, because the old relay switched radios did not need the receive line switched. They grounded the speaker with the relay, where modern radios, or even the way any of these here are wired, when the microphone's in receive, so you're not pushing down, what it does is it grounds the receive pin, and that's what your speaker actually grounds through in most radios. But, so, like I say, a few words of caution, a few little tips: make yourself up one of these, get a mic tester, and like I say, just having some jumper cable, little breakout cables like this can be handy for troubleshooting stuff, checking mics, even, like you're checking a microphone. It's hard to try and get down in there with test probes, hold them with your hand, and you're trying to hold two probes in there. It can be tricky. It's real simple. I can just plug this in here. Now I can just clip this, clip these wires onto my probes, my test leads for, to go out to the meter. Makes it no hands. I can just clip it on, and then I'm free to use both hands. So, a few little tips. I hope you picked something up.